Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I don't recognize myself anymore? I've been feeling like I don't know who I am anymore, like I'm a stranger to myself. And I want to share with you something that I have not said out loud. And that is that when you are evolving into a new version of yourself, that evolution may feel like grief because it means you have to let go of who you used to be. We always begin with gratitude, so I want to thank you for being here and let you know that I am so very honored to have your energy and your presence here in this space. Peace. I am LA, licensed therapist, holistic wellness coach and guide, and the creator of this channel, Reconnect with You. I want to tell you a short story about how I was able to recognize that I was becoming a new version of myself and the grief that was involved in that process for me. I remember I had met a new person and we were getting to know each other in a very platonic way. It was very friendly, and over the course of us getting to know each other, I won't use the term red flags, but there were things that were screaming at me and communicating to me that maybe this was a relationship that was not in alignment with who I am or with just the direction that my life and my path were going in at the time. And I made these mental notes with myself around what it was that was happening that I felt was problematic or that maybe didn't feel good for me. And I got to a point where I reached out to this person and I communicated to them after some really deep reflection and thoughtful reflection. And I had decided that this connection was not in alignment with where I was, and it just was not what I wanted at the time. And I remember I made this decision really thoughtfully, but I also made it pretty quickly. And I say quickly because it was quick compared to some situations that I had found myself in the past, whether it was jobs or friendships or romantic relationships, where I allowed myself to stay in situations that didn't feel good for me after already having data and evidence to support that these connections or these things or these environments were not for me. They didn't feel good for me, and they were not what I wanted or felt like I deserved. So for me to make this decision as quickly as I did, I remember feeling confused. I remember feeling really surprised. And I will be really transparent and share that there was also some doubt there for me, because I wondered if I was making the right decision. I wondered if maybe I had arrived at that decision too quickly. There was also some grief there because this was someone who I felt a really deep connection with, and someone who I felt had entered my life for a really meaningful reason. And I think there was some guilt there too around how I might have made this other person feel, or I should say how they felt as a result of my decision. So there were a lot of different emotions and thoughts that came up for me with this decision. And I remember sitting with myself and reflecting on how thoughtfully I arrived at the decision, but also how I reacted in a very sure way. Even though I was showing up as someone that I didn't recognize, or I should say behaving in a way that I was not used to behaving in, I trusted myself and I continued on with that decision. And ultimately, it ended up being a really healthy decision for me. But it took me a little while to accept that and to be able to trust that I had made the right decision. And something else that came up for me was in my reflection with myself. And I remember laughing and asking myself, I was like, who are you? Because the person that I knew and the person that I had been for a long time up until then was someone who gave people chances and would stick around. And again, these were not, I don't think these were necessarily conscious decisions that I was making, but there were these things beneath the surface that I knew didn't feel good that I was not acting on. And this time was different because I gave the situation some time. I made some notes with myself. I also had some conversations with this person around just some things that I had noticed in our dynamic and just between us that didn't feel good. And how that conversation went also informed my decision to part ways with this person. So I wanted to offer you this story because it was the moment for me where I really questioned, wait a minute, who are you? And also the moment that I realized I am not who I used to be. And that's when I also realized that I'm grieving my old self, that this is a part of the process, and that will be an ongoing and a continual process. So becoming a new version of yourself is not just about the growth and the development and even, outward, the outward appearance of being a different person or looking different, I should say. It is about grief. It's about letting go and letting go over and over and over again. And that's the part that not a lot of folks talk about, just how excruciating some of that grief can be. And you might even find yourself trying to grasp different aspects of yourself or hold on to some of the familiarity. And so it's important in this process to honor that grief, to be able to acknowledge it and also honor it. I want to offer you just some takeaways in terms of something that's been supportive for me in my evolution and becoming this new version of myself, which I'm still in that process. I am still becoming, I'm still changing. I also feel like I am in a bit of limbo. I don't feel like I am who I used to be, but I also don't feel like I am in the fullness of the new version of myself. So I feel like I am in a bit of this in-between space. And I'm sure it has a name, but I am not recalling it in this moment. But I want you to remember that if this evolution and this change shows up for you, that is a sign that you are ready. I want to go back very briefly to what I mentioned about some circumstances or environments or jobs and friendships and things like that I had previously stayed in beyond their expiration date. And I think the reason why that was the case was because I was not ready to let go. I wasn't ready to move on. And when that change and that evolution shows up for you, you must trust yourself that I am ready for this. I can do this. And I trust myself in this process. I trust myself and my decision making in this process. So that's one thing that I want to offer you. Remember that you are ready. When it shows up, you are ready. Something else I think that's really, really important to remember is that not everyone is going to vibe with this new version of yourself, because they might look different. They may dress different. They may have different habits. They may be interested in topics that your old self was not in touch with. And I could go on, but it's important to keep that in mind, that sometimes the new version of yourself is also not connected to some relationships and habits and other things that were familiar to you. So not everyone is going to accept or be okay with the new you. And it's important that you are okay with that, and that you understand that that is another part of the process, and I think another layer of grief. And one last takeaway that I want to leave you with is that you don't need to become the full version of your new self in order to fully understand what's happening. And that's where the trust comes in. So you don't need to be in the fullness, like I said a few minutes ago, you don't need to be in the fullness of that version of yourself to trust it, to trust the process, and to trust that you are exactly where you are intended to be. I want to leave you with a prompt for journaling or reflection, as I always do or in my videos with, because I am very introspective, and I also, my intention in what I decide to talk about here is that it's something that you can take with you and something that you can chew on for a little while. And while you are doing that, I want you to have at least one prompt that you can use to support you in that reflection. And I want to ask you, is there an updated version or a new version of yourself that is emerging? And are you resisting it? Is there a new version of yourself that you are resisting? Yeah, I wanna leave it there. I think that's enough. If I do think of because sometimes after these videos I think of other prompts and things that I want to offer, I will be sure to drop that in the description of the video. Speaking of the description of the video, there's always gems there. Please check those out. There's always an article that I link, because I like to, I'm a reader and I'm a speaker. And I imagine that there are folks who are here and a part of this community who some prefer reading, some prefer speaking. So I want you to check out the blog article that is on the same topic of evolution and welcoming new versions of yourself, or a new version of yourself. And so I invite you to check that out, but remember to check the description box for other gems related to this video, anything that I drop in this video, and then also my previous videos. But I want to just end with this. I am still getting to know this version of myself. I am still very much grieving my old self, my old life, still releasing some habits and just some things that I know are not in alignment with this new version of myself. And I am making a decision throughout this whole process to continue to trust. and to continue to show up for myself and for this new version of me, and approach that with curiosity. One of my favorite questions to ask myself and to just offer clients that I've held space for, and have also offered this to friends. And that question is, who are you now? And what does this version of you need? And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, that's a bonus prompt. But I am continuing to check in with myself around, what it is that I need, because as I continue to evolve, so do my needs, and what it is that is going to be required of me on my path. Well, that is all that I have for y'all for today. I look forward to connecting with y'all again soon, but in the meantime, reconnect with you. Peace, y'all.